It is no mistake that in the course of time, technology has become one of our greatest assets, while also trying to be potentially our greatest enemy. We've seen such tropes time and time again used in media when we refer to robots and the increasing usage of AI that has had them as such villains. Just like how WALL-E did with such a character like Otto. Because obviously in a world like WALL-E, you would want to have your main villain be that of a robot contrasted with its hero that is also a robot, demonstrating the way humanity lost their own way that isn't too destructive like most, to show more as a reflection of our own consequences. Because as you realize, this video isn't just meant to discuss Otto as a villain, but to actually further delve into the real enemy being ourselves. The true antagonist of the source of WALL-E, with humanity's own complacent attitude that led them to the situation on the Axiom, spearheaded by organizations like By and Large, portrayed through humans like Shelby Forthright, who couldn't even solve the issue of cleaning up Earth and trashing it as a result. And because of those reasons, I really do find them to be the most interesting and unique villains they've ever produced. Again, in the theme with what I say the studio does with producing antagonists rather than straight up villains designed to fulfill a certain directive. But of course, saying things like interesting and unique doesn't mean he's certainly the best villain that they've ever done as a robot, with other real tangible characters that have better stories since they're not robots, yet how it remains to be a reflective piece of the world of WALL-E, a world of beauty and destruction caused by a lack of caring attitudes. This is notably seen in the fact that Otto isn't even voiced by anyone but by Apple's text-to-speech program Macintalk that is made for their Macintosh computers at the time, really giving him that complete artificial feeling as a character that doesn't do anything other than what they were programmed to do. No sense of emotion or logical reasoning that makes him dangerous as can be unless stopped by any other force, as any autopilot is actually designed to do. Also, designing the character as the ship's steering wheel itself is pretty genius for the movie, knowing what it reflects in the course that humanity steered itself off that course in that sense, but regaining control towards the end. So with that knowledge, we must understand the beginning of the movie with what the real world tells us in the true villains of WALL-E itself. WALL-E, of course, being the only sentient being on Earth as it seems, littered with nothing but trash and the remnants of holoprojectors displaying humanity 700 years before the events of the film, ending up on the Axiom or other ships, where, as you know, it's advertising them leaving while robots pick up all the trash, focusing on Forthright waving goodbye to the ships that took off and nothing more than that. This was the last piece of humanity's contact with Earth, and that was it. And that's why I wanted to start things off to treat ourselves as villains. We left our problems here back home on Earth, and the state of the world couldn't have been more worse. Like there's no living being ever left other than this one singular robot and his own pet roach. The film just manages to paint this vivid picture where you don't know if other animals out there even exist at all. The entire upper atmosphere of Earth is just consisting of satellite trash, and the world just looks like a pale brown, including the ocean. And what more proof would you need to say the real villain is humanity other than that itself? No matter the size, we all play a part in this world, and the blame has to rise somewhere in order to create what we all know. But it is through characters like WALL-E that we recognize our own past that we can be better. When films like Hello Dolly actually express this love and connection that this little robot yearned for his life when he saw Eve for the first time. And yet another sign that humanity had no interest or idea that this was their home when probe droids are being sent back to Earth, being fully autonomous ships while they all stay safe in space. It's an interesting way to look at how our antagonists get formed when they don't really exist anymore or quite yet, and how it's mainly focused on this funny relationship between the two in a desert city wasteland, where the background is the greater clue to showcase where things are headed in the evil or villainous parts of it, where in the midst of chaos, there's always beauty and love. And this continues with the shock and awe response when WALL-E chases after Eve back on the ship to discover the wonders of space and the ominous Axiom where humanity resides. As we have discussed before, the decision to make live-action humans and then transition the rest of the film to straight-up animation where humans are obese and can't move beyond their hover chairs glued to the holoscreens was just so important to showcase visually how far removed we are from our initial point. Again, reminding you what I just said when robots are the only ones surveying Earth for a directive that remains obsolete in this time other than what was given to the Earth at that very moment. I mean, you know how things are messed up when they celebrate this 700th anniversary of a 5-year cruise and not even know they had pools on their own ship. A sign guided by our introduction of Captain McCrea, showcasing previous generations of captains that represented the gradual decay of society, surrounded by the background presence of Otto, finally showcasing the perceived main villain. An appearance that is very discreet, yet still ominous to the naked eye, guided by his own directives and commands, helping out the captain. Because you know when he's sleeping, the machine still keeps things operating on course, so you know who's in charge and how everything is afloat, preventing supposed failure. Nothing too much rather than what is. But once he scans Eve's body, you probably know something's up by the flash of the clever A113 reference before he warns the captain to investigate, showcasing a video of Shelby forthright of the instructions given upon hundreds of years ago. That it leads humanity back to the question of Earth, yet still leaves us empty with nothing to show for when there was no plant inside. And moreover in the scene, the key bringing up Shelby forthright here, despite being a minor character representing a society long gone, is the fact that he is the overarching antagonist of WALL-E itself rather than Otto, where yes, Otto is the real threat who uses force, but there still comes other forces within the film that represents that nature. The entire motives or directives did again come from the company by and large that made the trash on Earth by buying it all up and then packaging everyone out into space. And he's the one solely responsible for proposing that, sending people out there when he thought robots could do the job, when evidently they now had failed. Like all the true actions that come from the film come from solely corporate decisions like CEOs like Shelby Forthright and how they're actually done for the worse. And now Otto is the one we have to deal with it, who subtly removes hints of trying to stop Captain from finding out more than just saying goodnight. Not quite suspicious to the naked eye, who we think is just doing its daily routine, but having more to its own programming. Yes, some people might think it's just basic or just run-of-the-mill architecture running things, but it's very important to actually showcase this entire behavior because it reflects on Shelby Forthright's own character and all the humans of that time who couldn't know any better but to go into space. This is also seen by one of the roaming robots that disposes of the plant, confirming their malicious behavior. Well, not really malicious if you get their specific design, but still harmful to the events that they were trying to attain, including removing the plant that could have brought them all home. Cause why else would the plant be missing in the first place if it weren't for some higher up efforts to keep something that could be nefarious, directed towards a dark path, but actually not if we get the messaging down. Since the next time we come face to face with them is when the plant gets revealed after Macrea spends time down the rabbit hole of all what Earth is good for, only to discover through modern day footage of Eve that it is all broken and lost to what it once was, but how he finds the courage to restore that because it's a duty, but how Otto at the same time reacts so quickly to try to remove the plant as determined by his own directives of classified orders that he finally relents to showing to the captain. It brings us back to the true antagonist of Shelby Forthright 5 years after their initial positive messages and how the cruisers were supposed to return home 695 years before the events of WALL-E. We learn here yet again that people like Shelby were just so stupid and lazy enough to care, that they just damaged the Earth completely despite Operation Cleanup, that it got so toxic and so ineffective that they all had to leave and they admitted their own failure. Their reliance on using robots to fulfill their own tasks made them complacent and as a result just rendered everything uninhabitable in the course of time itself on the Axiom, leading to the result of the confirmed state what most of the humans are in right now, that it was just easier for them to remain up there rather than solve the problems down there, confirming why he was the main villain since he gave all the autopilots Directive A113 to never return to Earth, which is a grim fate if we know that more ships took people out to space rather than solely just the Axiom, that there's so many autopilots out there that are following the same orders that Shelby Forthright issued 695 years ago and they're still stuck in space, rather than this one crew who found out the truth. Because our own refusal to fix our own messes creates the villains of our own making like Otto, hence why he becomes super effective and dangerous as a sentient steering wheel, trashing others to remove what is needed to be done. You can't stop or reason with them because they are always programmed to uphold such ideals, and the ideals of old humanity that refuses to learn. Yet how Captain Macrea represents something new, coming in to learn and now making up to fix the past, knowing that the plant represents a fresh new start that life can exist. What we constantly try to drill in to live rather than survive. A turning point into making the choices for yourself, learning of how close Otto has been getting to the captains that symbolizes the true master of the ship before he tries and takes it over. But how a robot is smart enough to hold him hostage into a mutiny to keep this certain directive. To make it hard for everyone, because why should you when the enemy is designed to control most functions that keeps everyone alive? Why do anything when you have accustomed to the situation you find yourself and degrade it into? Well, the simple answer is because we have to. we have to change things ourselves in order for anything to be different, because auto itself in the name represents putting our actions on hold, of course on autopilot, so we can supposedly relax. But how in the midst of the final battle, while Wally holds up his entire strength to stop him, the captain switches that and starts to walk again, finding the courage to take control of his life and switching auto back to manual. Manual, of course, means we have to put in our own effort. The most simplest yet powerful moment that they ever could have come up with, representing the wheel of humanity turning yet again to the best it could be, where now you should understand more about auto rather than its own surface view, taking into account its entire world and actions and circumstances that shaped certain individuals to a point in their own life, to remind ourselves the dangers of complacency, waiting on things to happen rather than doing it if real change is to come. Because sometimes you don't need to showcase your villain, especially one of a robotic or artificially intelligent nature, to be completely destructive, thinking all humans are a problem after gaining sentience for yourself, and moreover just made exactly for what its intended purpose is, no matter how bad the specifics might end up being according to its design. Because Wally is about opening up people's minds to different things through feelings of love and compassion, with the connection that we all need rather than wasting ourselves alone. In its basic essence, it's a very realistic villain, from the attitudes of the real human beings in Forthright to the programmed nature of course Auto, never really intentionally acting out of evil or harm and only done out of what they perceived as necessary. That the true villain is ourselves and our refusal to learn, but how we can change that if we open our minds. It is all just based in the root of the soulless corporations dedicated to keeping the bottom line, and only the bottom line, rather than the well-being of its inhabitants that deserve to start anew due to the spark of human imagination and the encouragement to get up cooperating with their environment rather than letting it play back for them. I know this entire journey was short for you all, but just thinking about it and what the story really brings to both robots and humans was truly perfect. All it took was just a cute little Wally unit to realize all of that can be better, and I am forever grateful for its existence. And with that said, I'm all done. Goodbye.